Okay. Um, we need to talk for just a little bit about the problem of evil. Excuse me. The problem of evil is essentially the the idea that if there is a all-knowing, all-powerful, or all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good God, why would there be evil in the world? Why would people be hurt and traumatized, especially in terms of moral evil? Now, there's two kinds of evil generally. There is natural evil. This is events like earthquakes, hurricanes, other things like that. So that's one issue. Um, and the other issue is moral evil. And moral evil seems to be a little bit worse. Maybe we could live with natural evil, but regardless of that, when we think of God, the typical um, notion of God is the notion that God somehow is um, in the Christian, Judeo Christian, Islamic tradition, God is all knowing, all powerful, and all good. Or all PKG, all powerful, all knowing, and all good. Now, with natural evil or moral evil, if God is all powerful, you would think he would be able to stop natural evil, like an earthquake that hits um, Turkey and Syria and kills 35,000 people. Um, it seems as if an all powerful God could stop that. So, what are our options? Well, our options are we can think of a theodicy, some reason for the evil that we have. We'll get to that. The other thing is we can move around and play around with our characterization of God. So, maybe, possibly, God is not all powerful. Let's take natural evil, for example. Maybe God can um, take evil. He can handle, maybe he can handle moral evil. Well, we know he doesn't handle that either. But um, maybe we could just give him credit, say he created the world, he put everything in motion, and then he just doesn't mess with it anymore. So the tectonic plates move, and he just kind of allows that to happen. Meteorology, he created meteorological events, and when storms get big, you get perfect storms or whatever, and then you get the that. So possibly he limited his power either by choice or after the creation of the world, he just didn't. Maybe he's not all knowing. That's the other option. Maybe he's all powerful, but he's just not all knowing. Like things like earthquakes surprise him. Like, wow, didn't see that one coming. You know, um, or or maybe um, he's just not all good. You know, maybe he's just somehow he's diabolical. Now, typically, people will use a theodicy. Um, now, theodicy is um, to justify. I mean, in terms of theodicy, it means basically to justify God, to justify his actions. Um, one of the things that is a common one, and that's the one that John Hick uses in your reading, is basically a soul making theodicy. That God allows evil to um, to help us to become better people. Now, this one, sorry about the wobbly camera here. This one seems a little bit more problematic, and the reason this one is a little more problematic is because it seems as if it doesn't work all the time, particularly with an all-knowing God, right? So it doesn't make a lot of sense. I have a friend. He lives in Indiana. He was a student, a doctoral student at Notre Dame. I think he's finished with his doctorate now, but I haven't seen him in a couple of years. Um, but he and I were talking one day, and he said, "Yeah, the problem of evil came up, and that's when I decided that there couldn't be a God because why would he let all these bad things happen? Let children get raped and other things like that, and yet and not do anything about it. So there must not be a God. I It's on my lap. It's shaking a lot more than I want it to. I'm sorry about that. So anyway, he said that he decided at that point when he came into the problem of evil when he was a young man. He said, "Nope, nope, can't be. There can't be a God." So he just rejected God and moved on his merry way. So, in terms of that, if God allows evil, moral or natural evil, in order to help us to become better people, or to have more faith in God, in my friend's case, he didn't develop more faith in God, and an all-knowing God would have known that was going to happen. So there are problems with that. I remember in October of 1981, it was a week after my um, little sister was born. Um, my little brother's best friend from school, he was 8 years old, 8 or 9. He was 8 or 9. Anyway, he ran out in front of a car and was hit and killed. I was, he must have been 8. I was like 13, 14 at the time. And as a 13 or 14-year-old, I was traumatized by the death of this young kid. I mean, he was, like I say, he was my kid brother's best friend. Um, and I was friends with his older brother. And so it was just really devastating to have this happen. And it was a small community, small town, northern Wisconsin, and um, this kid dies. And I remember that was a time when, I was confronted with the idea of evil, you know, with the problem of evil. Like, why would God allow this to happen? Why would he allow this 8-year-old boy, 8 or 9-year-old boy, he might have been 9, to suddenly be killed? I had some real struggles with that. Still struggle with it. Don't don't know why. Now, um, typically, the response that a lot of um, people of faith will give you when they talk about the problem of evil, they'll first say something like along the lines of God is using this um, to help make us better. The other one I hear a lot from people of faith is, well, you need good, you need evil so you can appreciate good. There has to be these two forces. Well, that's Eastern philosophical thinking. And while I don't totally discount it. The yin and yang I don't think is necessary. Like, I don't have to eat um, a cow pie to appreciate chocolate pudding. They look alike. They look pretty much the same. But I can eat chocolate pudding and appreciate chocolate pudding without having that evil there. So I my son is coming out. So anyway, so that's, I don't know, that doesn't work with me. I don't necessarily think that God needs to have evil to somehow make us better or anything like that. I mean, if he's God, you know, I don't know, you know. Um, the other one is that I hear a lot is that God just gave us free will. That's it. He gave us free will. Well, there are some problems with that too. In the first place, if the Christian God, being all powerful, all knowing, and all good, etc., if he um, if he truly is all of those things, um, why would he need evil? Why would he even trust us to make the right decisions? Right? Why would why would making the right decision be put on us? Um, it seems a little. I'm not good at making decisions, particularly not like eternal ones and things that deal with all of that stuff. So that is definitely um, kind of a difficult idea to handle too. I mean, if he's all powerful, he's all knowing, he's all good. Why would he? I mean, he would know the decision I was going to make anyway. It doesn't seem as if evil, either natural or moral evil, really serves any purpose for an all powerful, all knowing, all good God. Um, in fact, it tends to make him look not so good. Um, the the readings that we had, the first reading, um, the Dostoevsky. We'll talk about the story in there. The feudal lord or whatever, at the time, liked he had hunting dogs. He liked fox hunting, so he had all these hunting dogs. Kids are playing around, 7, 8-year-old kids, 9-year-old kids playing around near um, near the dog's cage, and one kid throws a rock and hits one of the dogs, and hurts the dog's foot. Um, and now, of course, this is a novel, but it's an interesting story. So the master, the feudal lord or whatever, he goes out there and he sees that his dog has been hurt, and he finds out that the boy did it. So he locks the boy in a cellar, naked and cold, and leaves him there all night. And then the next morning, he brings him out and tells him to get a head start, and he sicks the dogs on it. Chase the boy. Um, and that is a picture. You know, I mean, the guy even went, the feudal lord even went so far as to drag the kid's mother out there. And um, I don't know. I don't know. Just, I mean, that is just evil. I mean, hurting a child that way is just, oh, the whole idea of it. Just reading the story, even though it's a novel, it's a fictional story. I suppose, but it is not something that you know. You read it, you watch the news. It's not something you maybe wouldn't expect to happen. Somebody might, somewhere might have done something like that, obviously. So that brings up the question, and that's why, um, what was his name? Um, Ivan Karamazov tells Ayosha, I can't believe in a God that would allow that to happen. I can't do it. It doesn't make any sense. Why would I believe in a God that does that? So that's the first story. Now, these are the problem of evil is a challenging problem. It is a problem that um, uh, there is no in my view there is no good answer to. That's one of the reasons why it's a philosophical problem. There's just not a good answer to this one. Now you can stick your head in the sand and you can say that God is using it as a soul building opportunity to help us get better. That's okay. Or that maybe God is not all powerful, maybe he's not all knowing, maybe he's not all good, maybe not two or three of them or whatever. Um, those are all options that you have. But the solution to the problem of evil, when it comes right down to it, the only real solution to the problem of evil is you just have to like ignore it, move forward on faith. I mean, that's your really only option because you're going to be confronted with evil no matter what you do for the rest of your life, whether you're a person of faith or not a person of faith. Evil is there, and you're going to have it. I was just thinking about this. Another problem, and I think it's Isaiah 43 or something. King James version of the Bible says that um, God creates evil. Now, um, He did. I mean, quite obviously, um, because if he was all powerful, all knowing. I mean, I don't know exactly, the theory or the Satanology that any of you, grew up with if you grew up in church, and there's different versions somewhere, but I think it basically goes like this: from the few verses in the Bible that talk about Satan or Lucifer, um, I think it's generally accepted in Christian Satanology, and demonology, Satanology and demonology, which is the study of Satan, and demonology is the study of satanic angels, demon angels. Anyway, fallen angels. So generally, I think the story is that God created, the hosts of heaven, the angels, and Lucifer was well, Lucifer actually means light bearer. Uh, so he was the big guy. Uh, I've heard people say that he was like the music director of Heaven's Choir or something like that. There's all sorts of weird stories out there about it. Anyway, Um, so Lucifer apparently got jealous of God or something like that, and he fell. And he ended up taking, I think in Revelation it talks about a third of heaven with him, a third of the angels in heaven with him. So, if there was, um, 100,000 angels, he ended up taking 30, 33,000 or something like that with him. Whatever, 33.333, whatever. Um, so I suppose that's a plausible kind of answer, um, but it still doesn't make a lot of sense. Um, when you really think about it, I mean, why would an all-knowing God? I mean, if he created all these angels, why would he create one that he knew was going to go bad? I mean, couldn't he have fixed the problem in the beginning or something like that? Um, and then oftentimes the free will thing comes up, and people will say, well, yeah, so even the angels had free will, and 33% of them just decided to go bye bye, whatever. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I like that. And then it further gets complicated um, when you, I mean, if you believe in the creation story, the Genesis story, um, on some level, God makes this perfect garden, this beautiful garden, and he puts Adam and Eve in there, and then plops in the middle of the garden, he plops two trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Um, Tells them not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Just don't touch it, right? Well, I don't know. An all-knowing God probably knew that they were going to touch it. So, I mean, where did evil really come from? I mean, it seems like, I mean, God set it up. He he sets up the whole scenario. Um, and I've heard theologians talk about how the, uh, he was there's this battle between good and evil, God and Satan, and things like that. I'm not sure that created being and God. I mean, it seems like an unfair fight. I'm the guy who created you. You're this guy who, this angel who fell. Um, so God is somehow going to prove His goodness by allowing Satan to screw up this planet, um, which, I guess theologically that's what they have to say, because he put the tree in the garden, and he obviously, um, created human beings and didn't create them with enough willpower to not try silly stuff. Um, you know, so maybe all powerful, all knowing. Those still come into question. Um, I remember when I was a kid, my grandma used to bake cookies. She baked the best cookies in the world. I haven't had a cookie like grandma's since, well, she got too weak to make cookies before she died. So I mean, it's been 30 years, 35 years since I've had a good cookie. Um, but grandma used to bake cookies. And she says, "Yeah, I'm not on a baking sheet." She might let us have one or something like that, but then they'd go in a cookie jar that she kept on her counter. And then she would always say, "Boys, you stay out of the cookie jar because, well, it'll spoil your appetite." Yeah, you probably heard that one. Well, you know, you put grandma's cookies in a cookie jar on a counter where I can get at them, and when grandma's not looking, there might be a cookie taken. Kind of, I mean, don't touch the cookies. And grandma, you got this temptation thing right there. So they put this beautiful tree right in the middle of the Garden of Eden, and all of a sudden, well, that's a nice looking tree, and um, I don't know. Yeah, there are other things. I mean, um, I think the translation of the King James version of the Bible, the translation in there is, um, that if you eat of the fruit of the tree, the serpent tells Eve, if you eat of the fruit of the tree, um, you will be like God. It was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. Um, and I don't know. The questions about evil are just so really. one of your only choices as a person of faith when confronted with the problem of evil is just kind of bury your head in the sand and move on. Just kind of not let it worry you too much until you're confronted with the evil once in a while. The other story in there, in B.C. Johnson's "Why Doesn't God Intervene to Prevent Evil," is basically the story of people standing out on a street, house on fire, maybe the back is not on fire, the front's on fire. There's a baby in the back of the house, and there's a young man there who, for whatever reason, is young and healthy enough and could easily go into the back door before the fire department gets there and get the child, and without even any risk to his own life, he could do that. And B.C. Johnson says the 20-year-old, 21-year-old guy refuses to. He says, "No, I'm not doing it. It's a fire. The house is on fire. You see that? I'm not doing it." And even though there's apparently no danger or nearly no danger for the young man, B.C. Johnson argues that God similarly could rescue the baby without any harm to himself at all, but yet he doesn't. We would say that the 21-year-old kid who doesn't, even though he could, we would say he's immoral. Why would you not want to rescue a little human? And we could ask the same question of God. Why would you not want to rescue a little human? And so B.C. Johnson then argues that maybe it's just because God is not moral. God is immoral. It's unethical. Which raises some serious questions. It is. It's a complicated and complex issue. But that's kind of the outline. Like I say, then John Hicks' article, where basically he says a theodicy, as a modern Christian thinker see it, is a modest enterprise, negative and rather than positive in its conclusions. It does not claim to explain or explain away or even give an instance of evil in human experience, but only to point to the considerations that prevent the fact of evil, largely incomprehensible though it remains, from constituting a final and insuperable bar to belief in God. Now, like I say, you can, in light of the problem of evil, you can go on believing in God. That is certainly a fair thing to do. But some of the questions that you should ask yourself and should at least understand, whether you give the free will answer, and I'm not sure that the free will is a good answer at all. I'm not convinced that we have free will. But if God does give us free will, so we can screw up, I don't know what what he's trying to prove, and if his giving us free will so he can somehow improve our souls, if that's what the plan is, I'm not sure how well it's working for him, or how well it would ever work for him. But yeah, those are some of the issues. So I think you want to consider the problem of evil. If you go all the way back, like to the origins of evil, it would be, if you believe in God and some type of Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition, you believe that there's a God and there's a Satan, and Satan was a created being, and he fell. That's what caused all this stuff, and then God gave him an opportunity to mess with Adam and Eve. He, of course, took the opportunity. Adam and Eve, of course, took the opportunity to try something new. And there you have it. Then of course, you have the problems with, like children dying for whatever reason that, we can't explain or whatever. So I hope this helps kind of clarify some of the things in there. I know we didn't get a chance to meet this Friday, but hopefully you'll be helped by this, and this will give you a little bit of a refresher. I'm going to set up a discussion board so we can discuss some of these things. I'll put some questions in the discussion board for you to try and answer. I'd like you to post your 3 questions with plausible answers. Just copy and paste it, post it. I'll set um, I'll set up a online Dropbox for that assignment, um, for you to put it up there. You can even upload your file, your paper file. I'll just change the dynamics of that so you can get that in sometime this week. Um, Sorry I didn't get to this stuff yesterday. Got kind of busy. My son was actually home from school too, so I had dad duties and we had, stuff to do. So yeah, I'm getting to it now. Yeah, I guess that's it for the problem of evil. Next thing we're going to be looking at though is um, reasons to believe. Um, is faith compatible with reason? So we'll be reading Pascal and we'll be reading Pascal and W.K. Clifford. That's a really good story, a really good essay. I like that one. Um, and we'll probably take a quick look at William James. William James was an American pragmatist philosopher. And I don't know, we might end up reading Plantinga too. Let me see how much reading that would be. Looking at my book, side me on the couch here. Yeah, yeah, that looks like it's going to be about it. Um, so we will we'll see you next Friday. Hopefully, we won't have a storm or something. So next Friday is going to be the what is it, the 24th, something like that. Anyway, yeah. All right. Well, like I say, I'll post that, and I'm going to post your assignments for next week. Your reading assignments for this is faith compatible with reason question. So, all right, there we go.